Graves, members of the committee. Good afternoon. I represent the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association, and we thank you for tackling one of the most challenging issues in our country today, and that is the status of our infrastructure. I'm honored to share with you some perspectives from the ports and navigation sector. And the Northwest region that I represent is truly a microcosm of the diverse national ports portfolio. We have big import centers like the ports of Seattle and Tacoma, which together are the third largest container gateway in the country. We have export gateways like the Lower Columbia River, where over half of the nation's wheat exports move out to feed the world. And we have a network of smaller ports on the Oregon and Washington coasts, which serve as commercial and recreational fishing hubs, and they home port critical Coast Guard operations. And that's just the view from the Northwest. Across the U.S., ports generate trillions of dollars in economic activity and support millions of American jobs. And our prosperity depends on the efficiency of our ports, and infrastructure is key. When we think about the infrastructure needs of our coastal ports, an issue top of mind is the harbor maintenance tax, or HMT. I heard it mentioned a number of times this morning at panel 1, and you'll hear about it a bit more from me. The HMT is collected mostly on imported waterborne cargo. It's intended to pay for 100% of the operations and maintenance needs of our coastal ports and harbors. But since 2003, HMT collections have far exceeded the funds that have been passed along to the Corps of Engineers for harbor maintenance. So we now have a surplus that has grown to over $9 billion. So rather than being fully used for critical maintenance, that money has been held back to help balance the federal budget. Now, our ports community has been working for years to support comprehensive HMT reform. The past few WRDA bills, and we have to say thank you for this, they had very important steps forward, including setting targets to get on the path toward full use of HMT revenues, 10% set aside for our nation's smaller ports, and authorizing funding for donor and energy transfer ports. As we look ahead, we continue to advocate for full use of all HMT monies collected. In our region alone, HMT dollars help to maintain places like Grays Harbor in Washington, where traffic has increased over 400% in the last 15 years. Everett, Washington, where nearly $30 billion worth of U.S. goods are exported annually. And Newport, Oregon, which is the home port for NOAA's Pacific Fleet. And this fund is also important to our nation's small coastal ports. Just one example in our region are the ports of Oahu and Chinook in Pacific County, Washington. Combined, they bring in a total of 16 million pounds of fish, valued at $22 million for a county of just 22,000 people. And without basic maintenance dredging, federal dredging, the lifeblood of that entire community would evaporate. We also have a significant backlog of deferred maintenance for structures like jetties, pile dikes, breakwaters, and more, and unlocking the HMT is key. Our association also supports a broader conversation about the HMT. I mentioned earlier the ports of Seattle and Tacoma. They are naturally deep import centers where significant amounts of HMT are collected, yet relatively little maintenance activity is required. And for ports that are close to a border, that can also play a role in their competitiveness. So we support an ongoing dialogue about how to support all U.S. ports, including small and donor ports. And as we think about a broader infrastructure package beyond navigation, our ports want to be a part of that conversation too. With the committee looking to build upon improvements made in the FAST Act, we encourage development of specific freight element in that new legislation with programs that are truly multimodal. Our nation's ports also support funding for first and last mile road and rail projects to expand capacity and efficiently connect our ports to surface transportation systems. We look to continue to build on programs like BUILD, Infra, RIF, and others for facilitating port improvements. And for ports which operate airports, I'd be remiss if I did not mention the need to increase that PFC that Mr. Crowder mentioned before. Allowing an increase in that fee will allow for critical investments at our nation's airports. And woven into all these priorities is the need for resiliency planning, and I hope to talk about that more during the Q&A session. Thanks for the opportunity to share our views. We look forward to partnering with you as you get to work on modernizing our U.S. infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.